President Donald Trump says the United States will strike inside Venezuela.
But that's going to start very soon. We warned them. Stop sending poison to our country.
Imagine waking up in Caracas and seeing this notification on your phone. To all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. Not from your own government, not from the United Nations, but from the President of the United States posting casually from a beach in Florida. Overnight, one sentence turns the sky above your country into a question mark. Flights start getting canceled. Relatives abroad blow up the family WhatsApp chats. And on Reddit, thousands of people start asking the same question. Wait, did he just start a war? In this video, we're going to break down exactly what happened between November 25th and November 29th. Why everyone from Caracas to Washington to Reddit is freaking out, and how close this all really gets us to a US intervention in Venezuela. This isn't a doomer prophecy. It's a breakdown of the facts, the noise online, and the uncomfortable possibilities no one wants to say out loud. Stay until the end, because the last section is about you, and what this kind of escalation means for regular people caught between two collapsing empires. How we got here. For months, the United States has been building up a massive military presence around Venezuela, warships, an aircraft carrier, F-35 jets, Marines on amphibious assault ships, and a brand new operation with a Hollywood name, Southern Spear. Officially, it's about drugs, about narco-terrorists, about smugglers moving cocaine through the Caribbean. But analysts point out that using an aircraft carrier to chase speedboats is insane. And on Venezuelan TV, Maduro says the quiet part out loud. He sees all of this as a rehearsal for regime change, not a drug bust. Relations between the US and Venezuela have been collapsing for over a decade. Sanctions, asset freezes, diplomatic expulsions, the US recognizing an interim president who never actually governed, and a Venezuelan state that turned inward, leaning on Russia, Iran, and China. By late 2025, both governments see each other as illegitimate. In Washington, the story is failed narco-state run by a dictator. In Caracas, the story is imperialist empire trying to starve us and steal our oil. That's the backdrop. A pressure cooker already about to explode. Then, the last 5 days of November happen. The 5-day escalation, November 25th. Venezuelan soldiers parade with missile launchers and anti-aircraft gear. At the same time, the US officially labels the Cartel de Las Solis as a foreign terrorist organization. To many on Reddit, this was Iraq, but with cocaine instead of weapons of mass destruction. Once you call someone a terrorist, every post-9/11 tool becomes fair game. November 26th. The FAA issues a security warning for flights near Venezuela. Increased military activity, navigation interference. Pilots and airlines know what this means. A giant yellow warning light, some routes quietly change. Some flights get delayed. Passengers have no idea they are sitting inside a geopolitical risk calculation. November 27th. International airlines begin suspending flights to Venezuela. Insurers start calling the area a war risk. Caracas retaliates by revoking operating rights for those airlines. Deportation flights get tangled. Some people breathe relief. Others get trapped in limbo. Venezuelan officials say they detected US combat planes, possibly F-35s 75 kilometers from their coast. Military subreddits explode with debates about whether Venezuela can even see stealth jets. November 28th. The US continues military drills in the Caribbean. Carrier groups maneuver. Satellite trackers on social media light up. Reddit threads fill with jokes and dread. So, we're invading South America? Relax, it's just a special military operation. We're speedrunning the Cold War. Behind the humor, people know the pattern. We've seen this movie before. November 29th, everything explodes. Trump posts that the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela is closed in its entirety. No legal explanation, no briefing. No plan for how you close someone else's sky without declaring war. Venezuela fires back, calling it a colonialist threat. State TV shows soldiers, missiles, and cheering crowds. Airlines and pilots are stuck in the middle, unsure what rules actually apply. Reddit goes wild. Reddit's reaction, Reddit becomes the internet's nervous system. On Our World News, the top comments swing between fear and cynicism. Congress should step in before we get another 20-year quagmire. We're watching the pre-credits. Scene of a war movie. This feels like the largest war crime of our lifetimes, and people just scroll past it. On Our Politics and Our News, the U.S. has zero authority to close another country's airspace. Declaring war is Congress's job. Doing it by tweet is imperial presidency. People in the region speak with fear. I live next to Venezuela and this is terrifying. Others say the U.S. is using narco-terrorism as a legal loophole to bypass checks and balances. On Our Late-Stage Capitalism, the drugs are the bait. The oil is the goal. Manufacture a crisis. Paint Venezuela as a threat. Sell the war. Others call the operation a distraction from domestic scandals. And in threads across Latin America, what are the chances the U.S. actually goes to war with Venezuela? Some say zero. Some say limited strikes are nearly guaranteed. Nobody shrugs this off. Media escalation, the language keeps escalating. Enhanced counter-narcotics operation. Targeted strikes on vessels. Major exercises off the coast. The largest military buildup in the region in generations. And finally, airspace closed in its entirety. Every step moves closer to something that looks and feels like war. What closing airspace really means, the U.S. cannot legally close Venezuelan airspace. Venezuela owns its sky. The U.S. can only order its own airlines not to fly there. So Trump's statement isn't law. It's a threat dressed as a command. It tells airlines, if something happens, that's on you. It tells Venezuela, we consider your skies dangerous. It tells the world, we might enforce this whether you like it or not. This gray zone is where miscalculations happen. Are we close to intervention? A full invasion is unlikely in the short term, but something else might be coming. Scenario 1, bluff and pressure. Lots of noise, carrier groups, boat strikes, covert operations. No direct land attack, a psychological campaign. Scenario 2, limited strikes inside Venezuela. Cruise missiles launched at targets the U.S. labels narco-terrorist infrastructure. A surgical operation, no UN approval. Huge regional consequences. Scenario 3, boots on the ground, the darkest path. Also the least likely. Venezuela's geography makes this a brutal generational conflict. The most likely outcome is something colder, slower, and more dangerous. More pressure, more sanctions. More covert operations. More strikes that are not technically war, but feel like it to the people below them. What this means for Venezuelans, this isn't a meme. A closed airspace threat makes daily life harder. Fewer flights, harder to leave, harder to return, more isolation. Some deportations pause. Some people get trapped. The government uses the crisis to consolidate control. More nationalism, more parades, more speeches about resisting imperialism. Meanwhile, in the United States, young people watch their country drift toward another conflict while struggling with debt, rent, and healthcare. Online, someone jokes, Vietnam DLC, Iraq reboot, Venezuela expansion pack. It's funny, and sad, and way too real. Why this moment matters, history might compress this into one sentence. Tensions escalated after the United States declared Venezuelan airspace closed, paving the way for... We don't know what comes after that ellipsis. Maybe everything cools down. Maybe we look back and say, that was close. Or maybe this is the start of a slow conflict that never gets called a war, but feels like one every single day. Closing someone else's airspace, even symbolically, is not normal. Parking a carrier strike group off their coast is not neutral. Calling an entire state narco-terrorists is not just rhetoric. People get used to the headlines, the shock fades. And by the time something irreversible happens, half the world has stopped paying attention. Outro, if you're in Venezuela or part of the diaspora or anywhere in the Americas, here's the truth. You are living in the shadow of a confrontation that might never be called a war, but can still reshape borders, economies, and lives. Every warning, every canceled flight, every strike gets us closer to a world where one social media post can choke off a country's air. The skies aren't closed yet, but the mindset that allows them to close is already spreading. So ask yourself, whose narrative are you buying? Who benefits from your fear? And what line must be crossed before you say, this is too far? Because if we don't ask now, the next headline might not be airspace closed. It might be something we can't undo. Stay safe and stay alert.